right, so awesome. I want to thank you so much, Minnelle, for coming on. We really appreciate it. People like you are really making a huge difference within our community. So again, we want to welcome you to our Setsi sessions that we have, and we make sure that we amplify your voices so that our community can learn from you and learn what you have to give in order to better the future generation. All right. So as always, we always begin our acknowledging our ancestors. So we begin by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. All right, so the first question that we have for you is, tell us about the origin of Ending Well with Minnelle and your work in community. So your origin and just a little bit of your background about your community work. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share. So Ending Well with Minnelle has been birthed out of my experience and my years in the funeral industry. So I'm a licensed funeral director. I work at the New Haven Funeral Center. Out of there, I started doing everything, helping families when someone had passed, actually looking after their loved ones, taking out services, all of that. And I realized, okay, we need a little bit more support before we get to this point. We need to understand what the process is to plan ahead of time. So I went and I became a pre-planning funeral director. So I started focusing there. And then while a pre-planning funeral director, I realized, okay, hold on, there's a little bit more that I can share. And so I went and I learned about becoming an End of Life Doula or a death doula, and kind of learned what the process is to have what I will call a good death. If you're so lucky to plan that time, what would you like it to look like, And then I realized, okay, I've got some education on that. And from there, I went back to school again and became a Certified Executor Assistant to help families now understand what happens with our estates when we pass. So now we're not just leaving an empty case of paperwork, but we're leaving a set, clear estate that's easier for our families so they can have something that they can just come to the funeral home or close an estate without any issues. So through all of that, and I'm sure I'm not finished, Ending Well with Minnelle was birthed. This is me using my education and finding a platform to share. My goal is to educate, normalize the conversation so that people are more excited, or at least more interested in moving forward. And now, once you have some education, you'll feel more comfortable in planning. So that's where Ending Well with Minnelle came. I host these conversations, I share information, and help our families to plan their estates and to then live well.
Beautiful. Oh man, how important is that, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. And how are you disrupting multiple ecosystems in the estate planning landscape in Canada?
So what I'm trying to do is to help our families not leave debt, not leave chaos. Because when we pass, as we were saying before, it doesn't just affect me, it affects my family and it affects generations to come. So let's say that I'm talking to somebody who has a couple of businesses. I will go over, going over your estate, going over your affairs, but also helping them to understand what happens to your business. What is your business succession plan? So that the work we're doing and how we're affecting community is not just going to end when we pass, but it will carry on. So that we, our family, and within our communities, we are keeping our resources here within us, as opposed to paying all of this tax and nothing coming to our families and nothing coming to our communities. So how I'm disrupting, I'm doing that by educating and helping people actually put these systems in place so that our families, our next generations are better off than how we were. That's my goal.
Amazing. So needed.
Thank you. My passion, as you can probably tell, this is.
Oh, absolutely. I'm getting goosebumps from how you're speaking. Trust me. So can you articulate your mission and vision for me?
So my mission is to educate the community and normalize conversations. And in doing that, it will help us to now act when it comes to closing our estate. My vision is to see myself on the great big stage, teaching and encouraging people not just now to end well, but to actually live well, right? Because once you take care of your estate and your legacy, now you're going to focus on living in these moments, taking advantage of the time that we have and doing the best impact we can with the time that we've been given.
Perfect. Amazing. All right. And what is the importance of having the conversations within families about their wishes? You know, oftentimes families are left trying to make the best decisions without any prior guidance. So can you tell us like what is included in your estate plan? So yeah, it's a couple questions. Yeah. Yeah, like many people think it's just a will or, you know, a POA, as they say. Yeah.
So I'll answer the first part first. Now, when it comes time to speak with our families, especially within our community, many families are left trying to figure out what their loved one would want. And getting to the second question, a lot of us think, okay, I've got my will, I'm done. I've looked after everything. But within families, your next of kin, they have certain authority up until a point. If you do not appoint a power of attorney, if you don't appoint someone to act on your behalf when it comes to your health, they can't do so. And then it's one thing if you appoint them, but don't give them any instructions as to what's important to you. Now they're left still trying to fulfill your wishes with no understanding of what that is. That's why it's so important, especially within us, that we don't avoid and try to silence this conversation. It needs to be had. And I know it's uncomfortable. There's ways of doing it. You know, we can do it slowly. Just kind of take this. You're listening to me right now. Take this as an opportunity to say, hey, ex, loved one, spouse, parent, whoever it might be. I was just listening to this show and I think we should talk about this. She encouraged me to ask you about this. Use me as an example as to what you can do tonight, because we don't know what tomorrow will hold. And if we're not sharing what is important to us about our care with our families or with our next generation, they're left without any answers. And now that can cause issues, not just with your immediate family, but down the line as well. Because if I don't know what you want and my brother thinks that what you want might be something different, that's where a divide happens. And what we are trying to do is to avoid that so that we're passing on a good legacy as opposed to stress. Now, the second part of your question was what's involved in planning a legacy. We already talked about wills. Wills are important. Make sure you review them if you have one so that it's still up to date and your wishes are still current. You have your power of attorneys, right? So your power of attorney for health and for property, meaning your finances. Determine who you want to do that. In addition to that, the living will. That's the document, or your advanced care plan. That's in a document that tells your power of attorneys what is important to me. How do I want to be cared for, right? That's another really important document, because it's one thing to give me authority without giving me any instruction. After that, you have your funeral. That's where I step in, your funeral plans. And don't let finances stop you. If you don't have the finances right now to cover your funeral arrangements, you can still make arrangements. Give us your wishes, and then your family can pay for it at the time. That's fine. The important part is sharing the information. So you have your funeral, your cemetery portion, and then you have your life story, your legacy. Don't forget about that, because these are all the tangibles, the estates, the insurances, but your life story is the intangible. That's what's passed on from generation to generation.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And how important is innovation in your work?
Hey. So it is becoming quite important. Now, one thing about New Haven, the funeral home that I work for, as well as myself, is we are very much trying to push the envelope. Let's see what we can do. Let's see how this industry can change. Let's see what's available. So we are very excited because now we're working on a new site that will allow our families to make pre-arrangements online, that allow us to engage. Well, this is one of the benefits of COVID, is now we can do a lot of appointments virtually. Now people can attend from anywhere, and it's not just watching a funeral, but you have the option to attend and participate from anywhere. So innovation is key, because when it comes to funerals, if we keep doing services the way that we've been doing them years ago, it's not going to be important or valuable to the next generation. So we need to keep finding ways of interacting with the next generation that will encourage them to continue doing funeral services. Because if you see, a lot of people aren't doing, depending on cultures, they're not doing funerals anymore. But you're forgetting the purpose of the funeral, whether it's with a funeral home, wherever you're doing it. The purpose of a funeral is to honor the person who has passed. And that is still key, however we choose to do it. You know, now we're going to have online memorials. We're going to have different things coming up, which I think are beautiful, but it's important that we keep going, because the purpose of honoring, the purpose of focusing on our loved one and the life story we talked about, of honoring that, is key. You never want to forget what someone's life, what someone's legacy is. You want to honor that.
Exactly. Beautiful. And what inspires you most about your work?
What inspires me most? I would say it's speaking to our families, because I see some families who I first met who had no plan and were dealing with chaos. You know, like when you're left with that big briefcase of papers and all of that. And now to see someone on the other side having everything looked after and seeing the peace that their family goes through. Those little things. I remember sitting down with my grandfather, and I had my BlackBerry at the time, and I was recording him and just asking him questions. You know, we just sat there. I was like, what about this? What do you think about this? What was it like when you were growing up? And I cherished that recording, because when he passed, it's like you go right back to that thing, to see the story, to remember those moments, and to reconnect. So it inspires me to know that what I'm doing is helping more people have those moments, instead of dealing with estates, lawyers, fights, and frustration, because it doesn't need to be that way.
Exactly. So true. And what challenges and barriers do you face in your work, and how are you having to overcome them?
Mm-hmm. So a lot of the challenges and barriers that I face, first of all, is because my job is to educate, right? And a lot of what I've seen over the years is a resistance to what I'm saying, a resistance to even engaging in this dialogue. A lot, and I'll say a lot of times, people are saying, I'm not going to die. I don't want to think about it. I'll think about it later, right? That for me, it's a personal resistance. But that's why I started Ending Well with Minnelle, because I think the more you have education, this is just education, no pressure. I'm here to talk and to share. The better people are educated, the more that the walls come down. And especially now, the more that people are seeing, okay, we've gone through this process. We tried to do a GoFundMe. It didn't get any money. Okay, this was stressful. I don't want this to happen again. The more that we see that, the more people are now coming to me and saying, how can you help us? Because we don't understand what all this is. I need someone to guide me through this process. That's the issues, I guess, the disruptions that I'm facing from families. And of course, industry-wide, this is an older industry. There's a way that people are accustomed to doing things. And if there's one thing you know about us, is we don't necessarily follow anybody's scheduled way of operating. And that was a barrier, but now it is a joy, because now people are recognizing that, hey, we don't have to stay stagnant. We don't have to continue the way we've always done. There are opportunities and there's ways to reach families and the community beyond what we've been doing. So now we are leaders. Now we are the ones that people are looking to. They're coming to our Instagram. They're looking throughout to see, what are we doing and how are we affecting the community? And that is beautiful.
Oh, totally. Because fear is definitely a big factor when it comes to talking about these things. And, it goes without, in different age range too. You know what I mean? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's important to mention. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
That it's not just, a lot of times people think estate planning, I'm going to wait until I'm older and I'll start doing that. But it's important to plan even from now. Like, it's a lot easier for me. I did mine when I was in my 20s is when I started mine. But it's a lot easier to think about it now when we hope it's going to be way down the road, as opposed to when we're getting older. And now it feels a lot closer because all of our friends are passing. and now you want to talk to me about it. It's very close. It's very emotional. It's a lot easier to do all your estate planning the younger you are.
That's right. Absolutely. And how do you have a set of key priorities in your work right now?
I do. I think my key priorities right now, first, I've mentioned it a couple of times, is educating, right? Definitely speaking, educating towards the community so people understand what is available. The second one is community engagement, right? So being involved in the community, networking, and really expanding the reach beyond simply what I'm doing, what I can do by myself, because I understand that my reach is only here, but our community is wide. So if I can share this message and someone else can take it, I saw that you had Harpreet on the other day. If I can share a message and Harpreet and I can speak, and then she can share it with someone else, that's how I want for all of us to grow, by doing it together as a community, rather than trying to do it individually and pushing alone. We can do so much more together. So that is definitely one of my focuses.
For sure, for sure. And how do you feel about the future of aging and estate planning in Canada?
So I'm going through a process now with my loved one, and I speak to people all the time about aging and trying to age well. I think that in Toronto, we do have some work to do when it comes to creating spaces for our seniors to feel appreciated and to feel valued. I think a lot of times, if you look at some of the homes that are available, if you look at some of the care that is available for our seniors, it could do with a little bit more love. It could do with a little bit more reverence. I know that for myself, I'm very passionate about seniors. I'm very passionate about just hearing your stories and ensuring your legacy doesn't end without being acknowledged, right? So I'm hopeful for more opportunities. I'm hopeful to see more spaces, especially spaces that are geared towards and focused on supporting the Black community, because I know that a lot of the homes that are here, they're doing their best, they're trying, and I appreciate that. But I really want to see something where my loved one can go in and they're going to eat their food, they're going to hear their music, and they're going to feel like this is their place every day, not just one day of the week, but every day, So there's lots to do still. There's lots of opportunity in Canada, in Ontario. So I'm looking forward to more of that. If I can say that, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that, because I've heard that more than one time, is that there isn't enough nursing homes or retirement homes, because I know there is a difference, for our community and our elders to feel like they're home, like you said, like, whether it's the Caribbean or Africa, you know what I mean? To really, so when they come in, it feels familiar to them. It feels, that happy and joy, it's so important. And what is your ultimate goal, and what does success look like to you and your colleagues?
My ultimate goal is to have a place where everybody can come easily, be it not necessarily a physical place, but an online space where the community can come, gain all the information that they need for how to create their estate, right? So it's not too difficult to do. It can be done. It's in process, so just stay tuned. But that is my goal, to have a space that's easy for everybody to come through and really just get their estates completed. There was a second part to your question, though, that I'm forgetting.
So what does success look like to you and your colleagues? And
Yes, success. So for me, success goes beyond just the estates and what we're talking about here. It's what we were talking about before with regards to our seniors. Success is now changing the narrative, especially within our community, of what ending well means, of what legacy planning means. It's something now that we have open conversations about. They're like, in everything that we do, the moment someone has a child, they're getting insurance on that child. We're doing it so that our community is generating and sharing wealth, creating generational wealth, and it's just part of what we do, as opposed to being something that we shy away from and don't speak about. That to me is success. And then on the side, of course, having more homes and beautiful spaces for our seniors.
Right, exactly. Amazing. So do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action?
Absolutely. I would invite you to find me. You can follow myself. You can follow New Haven on all of our socials. The easiest way to get in touch with both is to go to www.ewwm.ca. That's www.endingwellwithminnelle.ca. And there you'll see links to a free downloadable guide, our workbook. It's our First Steps workbook, and it will help you understand what's involved in actually creating a legacy plan. So that's the first thing that you can do. And then from there, you can get more information if you wanted to plan ahead, or if you wanted to have a consultation where I'll go through all of this with you and we'll talk about what is involved for you specifically in planning ahead. So thank you. Thank you for inviting me on. I appreciate being here.
Oh, it's so needed, Minnelle. I mean, what you do is, I mean, we all need it. You know what I mean? It's that realization of truth of this is it. But we know it's the ultimate destination, but it's how we get there, the smoothness, the stress-free, the knowing, you know what I mean? And living as happy as we can on the physical, and knowing that, hey, we have everything that we need to take care of for our generations, for our family, our loved ones. We don't have to worry. And you're providing that service, and we thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. We appreciate your leadership in the community. And this is something that I hope everyone will contact Minnelle and really take advantage of this service, because hey, it is reality, but it doesn't have to be something negative, right? So as we close, we will close the way that we began, which is acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So we thank you so much again for your time, your service, and we will definitely be connecting with you again soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I appreciate all your leadership and how you guys are serving the community. It's definitely needed. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.